It's 5 after. Are we waiting on anyone else? Anyone? No one? Okay. There's Lynn. All right. If not, let's get started. I see 2 agenda from Jacob, and Jacob is on the call. So Jacob, please take us away.
Great, thanks. So I'm here on behalf of Steve Zhang from Intel. He lives in Asia, so it's very difficult for him to attend. Yeah. Can you click on the first item, please? Yeah. Sorry, the red color threw me off. Yeah. So we had some feedback from the community about 6 months ago or so, as we were trying to get dual stack implemented, to try a different approach. And so we've been working with the Envoy community to kind of simplify some of these things. One of the things that we added to Envoy was the ability to allow multiple addresses on a listener. This was intended for dual stack, but there are other dual stack applications as well. What we are requesting as part of this feature is to change the model.service struct. So there's currently only one address that is in the service registry for that representation. And what Steve is requesting from here is, for the purposes of dual stack, is it possible for us to change this structure to actually be able to support Kubernetes services that are dual stack in our implementation of adding this ability for listeners to be able to listen on different addresses. I know that's a lot of information, so if people have any questions or have any comments. Right now, Steve is wanting, again, just due to the time zone differences, I think it would be good for us to largely document, any things here in this item, just so I can later relay it to him as well. But what are people's initial thoughts? Is that something doable? This is a big change, obviously, as the model service registry the model service is a big component of the service registry. Costin?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it's a good change for dual stack, but the comments on the bug have a bit broader implications, and I think that's the one that we need to discuss probably. But I hope there is nobody who disagrees with that's a good idea for dual stack. That should be pretty obvious. But so use case for stateful sets, that's very interesting and would improve a lot of things. John, what's your opinion?
Can you hear me yet? Can you hear me yet? Okay, there we go. Yeah, so I agree generally. But the thing I'm confused about is unless I don't know, like this PR isn't introducing the change that Jacob said. It seems like maybe I'm looking at the wrong PR. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong PR. That's why. Okay, let me look at the right PR before I say anything. But I wasn't like, I'm looking at the service struct. It seemed like it already is a list. So I'll have to see what this PR is doing, I guess. Oh, this is an issue, not a PR. So I guess I'm a bit confused because from my reading of service, it's already a list. So what are we actually proposing?
I think when Steve was actually looking at this, I don't know if that was a recent change. So maybe this is a moot point. because I think when Steve was originally doing this, that wasn't the case. So, yeah, let me circle back with him.
But to be clear, the change to model, it's strictly for dual stack, because I don't think we'll represent stateful sets with by having the model for one object have multiple addresses. We should have a separate PR or discussion about how we generate the config for stateful sets. And if we can take advantage of this, I think it will, greatly improve our ability to support stateful sets, because right now we generate so many clusters and listeners. I mean, one listener for IP, when they all have the identical configuration, is slightly insane.
The only issue I saw with that was I actually had a PR to tried it out. I forgot to link it on that issue. It was like a 10-line change, so it was pretty simple. Issue though is that now I think that if any pod changes, then we drain all of the pods, and especially when it's Envoy could potentially be optimized to not drain. I don't know.
Yep.
That was the current blocker from me being super excited and asking everyone to go prove it.
Let's fix Envoy. I mean, it's a pile of bug. I mean, but I think we agree that this is better from our perspective to generate config with.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And if there's an issue in Envoy, Steve is working with one of his colleagues to actually get features done within Envoy, and so we might be able to ask if he can actually look into this Envoy issue as well, Costin. Yep. So please link to those issues, and let's try to comment on that. Both he and his colleague are both based in Asia, so again, I think the more information that we can provide to them in these issues, as I try to work with them, kind of later in my day. Great. All right, yeah. So I'll circle back with Steve on that. Yeah, can we open up the second issue?
Sorry, I have one more question about the previous item. John, does it help in any way with multi-network? I mean, can we put the address of the gateway in the same list? I don't know.
So I think right now so if you have, and even multi-cluster, if you have multiple services that have different VIPs, we only match on one of them, which seems fine. If we somehow wanted to match on all of them, we could do that. Yeah.
I'm wondering with DNS if external DNS or other things are used to, because right now we have the DNS intersection, but we want to eventually have external DNS and real DNS server. And
I think it will I have to check the exact logic. I think it prefers the local one, but we'll pick a random one, which is possibly not what you want. Ideally, we would match all of them, right? So if we can just shove them all on the list, and that's just a few more bytes, seems reasonable to me. Especially if Envoy makes the draining better.
Okay. Let's explore it, because that kind of is one of the blockers for external DNS and for using real DNS servers instead of intersection. And I think we should discuss if we want to pursue this, use real DNS servers and integrate with external DNS.
Okay, great. Francis, can you open the other issue?
Before we move on, just to capture the decision here, what is the final decision we'll come up with in summary?
So I don't think it doesn't appear that we'll need to change to the model service as it's already there, but then we do need to investigate these other concerns that were raised within the issue around stateful sets as well as Envoy draining. Is that a correct summary?
Yeah. I mean, the draining one doesn't necessarily need to block the IPv6 stuff because they're coupled, right? But if we want to use it for more things, which would be very useful, then I think we need to fix it.
And so it's Envoy joining, and what was the other one?
It basically is that Envoy draining enables all the other use cases.
For the stateful set use case, yes, only for stateful sets. I think the agreement is that for dual stack, it's all green.
All right. So second issue.
Yes. So I think the big question that Steve has around this is testing service entries in integration tests are hard. He is willing to do it. He is just looking for some guidance. Is there any modification either to an existing integration test that could be done, or could people provide a way to actually be able to test this in isolation, right? So setting up something with a service entry, can be difficult. I looked at the outbound traffic policy integration test that is already present in the integration test, and I remember working on this a couple of years ago, and it's rather confusing how like the different namespaces are set up and gateways and whatnot. So is it possible to modify that one to actually kind of meet your needs of better testing for this? And should we modify the testing framework to say that this test should only be run on a IPv6 only, and have an equivalent one for IPv4 only clusters?
Yeah, so I think a few notes. So we do have a setup already testing service entries where it's not actually hitting some external service, but for all intents and purposes it is. So that seems like it could be extended for whatever IPv6 stuff we need to do. And then we also have IPv6 tests run even as pre-submit. And in the framework, there is a way to say this test should only run on IPv4 or only on IPv6. So it seems like from what you said, we have all the building blocks already. We just may need to use them or improve them. Did I miss anything? And I can comment with links on the PR about where those actually are.
I think that was the only questions he had.
Okay.
Great. Awesome. Thank you.
So those are the only two issues on the agenda. Do folks have anything else?
One quick question about this whole dual stack and multiple addresses. Are we also testing multiple IP addresses, multiple IPv4 and multiple IPv6 addresses for the same node? Like it will be case for multi-network nodes, VMs, whatever.
I don't think we have any tests for that.
Yeah.
But is it supported? I mean, even without testing, do you expect to have multiple IPv4 and
on one node or on one?
Yeah, one pod would have multiple IPv4 and definitely multiple IPv6 addresses.
Yeah.
And it could also have multiple IPv4 addresses depending on how CNI and whatever it's set up. For example, may have an internal IP and one external IP or some combinations. The interesting part is that, again, if you are connected to that pod, you need to pick an address that is on the same network first and then the other ones.
I think the answer is largely no. I don't think there's even really a way in the API to represent that.
Well, yeah, probably not. For EDS, I mean that's for income. Okay, we should think about it, because with IPv6, that's kind of one of the points, is that you can get multiple network assigned and multiple IPs at the same time.
Yeah, Yuchen was looking into that a while ago, but it mostly died out.
Okay. Do folks have other agenda they'd like to bring up? Going once, going twice.
It's the 1.15 release.
Oh, sorry, say again.
When is the 1.15 release?
Let me bring up
The wiki was 8/31. August 31st was the tentative release date.
Yes.
I get Sam's there. And I think code freeze was a week from today, and release is 2 weeks from today, is what I last saw.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Code freeze
and I
is
believe
the
you're
24th.
Yeah, just wanted to give an update on the authorization policy and HTTP. We keep discussing and finding different solution. Probably next week we should approach it again.
So Prosh, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I have a query looking for pointers. So we were onboarding one of our servers onto the Istio service mesh. So for some of the APIs, we were just comparing the latencies with Istio and without Istio. So we are observing approximately 20 ms latency, additional latency with Istio. So we are trying to understand how this additional 20 ms is coming. So based on the benchmarks, so we were expecting only 1 to 2 additional milliseconds latency. So are there any pointers that we should we should look at to understand this difference? So one thing we started with is enabling the dispatcher statistics of the Envoy, just to see if the worker threads are saturated in some way. That is one. But yeah, they seem to be fine. Just trying to uh, uh, looking for some pointers and direction in debugging this further. Sure, I think probably we'll draft uh, a detailed issue with more observations. Probably that will help provide inputs. I'll do that.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right. So does anyone else have anything else to bring up? All right. And sounds like that is a wrap. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.